Commander Zora-Chin pressed her palm against the cool metal wall of the observation deck, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue through the reinforced viewport. 3 months ago, she had been teaching astrophysics at Stanford University. Now she stood aboard the Terran defense ship Resilience, humanity's first and only interstellar warship, heading toward a star system that shouldn't exist according to every textbook she had ever written. The discovery had started innocently enough. Dr. Marcus Webb, her former colleague, had detected unusual gravitational anomalies in the Proxima Centauri system during routine observations. What they found challenged everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. The system contained not just rocky planets, but massive structures that defied known physics, structures that were clearly artificial. Commander Chin, we're receiving another transmission, reported Lieutenant Sarah Martinez from the communications station. The young officer's voice carried the same mixture of excitement and terror that had become common among the crew since their departure. Zara straightened her uniform and walked to the bridge's central console. The transmission was unlike anything in human experience. It came in mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and geometric patterns that suggested intelligence far beyond Earth's current capabilities. More disturbing was the frequency of these messages. They had started as occasional signals, but now arrived every few hours, growing more complex each time. "Play the latest one," Zara ordered. The bridge filled with a series of harmonic tones that seemed to resonate directly in their minds. The ship's quantum computer had managed to translate portions of earlier messages, revealing fragments that spoke of young species, protection protocols, and something called the Prime Rule. What exactly this rule entailed remained a mystery, but the implications were clear. Humanity was not alone, and whatever was out there had been watching them. Captain Rodriguez emerged from his ready room, his weathered face showing the strain of command. At 62, he was the oldest person aboard the Resilience, a veteran of Earth's various conflicts who had been chosen specifically for his experience in first contact situations. Though no human had ever actually experienced first contact before. "Status report, Commander," Rodriguez said, settling into his captain's chair. "We're maintaining course for Proxima B, Captain. Estimated arrival in 18 days. The alien transmissions continue to increase in frequency and complexity. Our linguists believe they're trying to establish a communication protocol." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Any word from Earth Command?" "Last transmission was 48 hours ago. They're monitoring our progress, but maintaining radio silence as planned. We're truly on our own out here." The weight of responsibility pressed down on everyone aboard the Resilience. 412 souls carried the hopes and fears of 8 billion people back on Earth. They were explorers, diplomats, and, if necessary, defenders of humanity's future. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's chief xenobiologist, approached the command station. Her dark eyes reflected the glow of data screens as she carried a tablet filled with her latest analysis. "Commander, I've been studying the transmission patterns. There's something you need to see." She activated the main view screen, displaying a complex waveform analysis. The signals aren't random. They follow a specific pattern that suggests the senders are trying to convey urgency without aggression. It's as if they're warning us about something. Warning us about what? Zara asked. "That's what concerns me. The mathematical progressions in their messages include what appear to be countdown sequences. Not countdowns to destruction, but countdowns to readiness." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "Readiness for what?" "Unknown. But based on the complexity increases, I believe we're approaching some kind of threshold. The closer we get to their system, the more detailed their messages become. It's as if they're preparing us for something we're not yet capable of understanding." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. The mission parameters had been clear. investigate the anomalous structures, attempt peaceful contact, and assess any potential threat to Earth. What they hadn't prepared for was the possibility that the aliens might be more concerned about humanity's welfare than Earth's governments had anticipated. Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, are these beings hostile? Rodriguez asked the question everyone had been thinking. The xenobiologist hesitated. Hostile? No, but that doesn't mean they're friendly in any way we would understand. Their communications suggest a level of technological and social development so far beyond ours that we might be like insects to them. The question isn't whether they mean us harm, but whether they consider us significant enough to notice. Lieutenant Martinez suddenly straightened at her station. Commander, we're receiving a new transmission. This one's different. The bridge fell silent as the new signal filled their speakers. Instead of mathematical sequences or harmonic tones, they heard something that made every human heart skip a beat. It was a voice speaking in perfect English. Greetings, young travelers from the third planet of Sol. You have ventured far from your world, farther than your species has ever traveled before. We acknowledge your courage, but we must inform you that you are approaching a threshold your kind is not yet prepared to cross. The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It carried an authority that seemed to resonate with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. We are the guardians of this sector, bound by laws older than your star. The prime rule requires us to protect developing species from encounters that could destroy them. You call yourselves humans. You have survived your planetary childhood and taken your first steps into the vast ocean of space. This is commendable, but the deep waters are not yet safe for you to swim in. Captain Rodriguez found his voice first. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran defense ship Resilience. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. A pause followed, lasting exactly 60 seconds. When the voice resumed, it carried what might have been amusement. Peace, understanding. These are worthy goals, young captain. But you mistake our concern. We do not fear your weapons or your intentions. We fear for your survival. In 3 standard rotations of your homeworld, you will reach the boundary of our protected space. Before you cross that threshold, you must demonstrate that your species possesses the wisdom to survive what lies beyond. Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances with Commander Chin. What lies beyond? She called out to the transmission. Truth. Reality unfiltered by the protective barriers your young minds require. Species that view your entire solar system as we might view a single atom. Conflicts that span millennia and reshape entire galaxies. Powers that could snuff out your sun with a casual thought. The bridge crew absorbed this information in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe suddenly seemed tragically naive. The prime rule exists to prevent young species from venturing into situations that would result in their immediate extinction. Your courage has brought you this far, but courage alone will not suffice for what comes next. You have 3 days to prove that humanity possesses the wisdom necessary to survive in the greater galaxy. How do we prove that? Commander Chin asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. You will be tested. The tests will challenge not your technology or your strength, but your capacity for growth, your willingness to sacrifice individual desires for collective survival, and your ability to make decisions based on long-term consequences rather than immediate gains. Many species have failed these tests. Their worlds still exist, protected, but forever isolated from the greater community of galactic civilization. Captain Rodriguez felt the weight of his species' future settling on his shoulders. What happens if we fail? You will be escorted safely back to your system, and a protective barrier will be established around your star. You will be free to develop as you choose within that space, but you will never again be permitted to travel beyond it. Your species will remain children forever, protected but prevented from reaching adulthood. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in absolute silence. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the drama unfolding aboard one small human ship. Lieutenant Martinez broke the silence with a whispered report. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures ahead. Multiple contacts, each one larger than our entire ship. On the main screen, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend as enormous structures materialized from what had appeared to be empty void. Ships, if they could be called ships, that dwarfed anything in human imagination. They moved with purpose, arranging themselves in what could only be described as a formation designed to contain rather than threaten. My God, Dr. Vasquez breathed. They're not just technologically superior. They're operating on principles of physics we haven't even discovered yet. Commander Chin stared at the display, her mind racing through calculations and possibilities. Captain, we need to consider our options carefully. These beings are offering us a choice, but it's a choice that will determine the entire future of human civilization. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Get me a secure channel to Earth Command, Priority Alpha, and convene the senior staff in 1 hour. We need to prepare for the most important decision in human history. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Zara remained at the viewport, watching the alien vessels maintain their patient vigil. 3 days to prove humanity's worth. 3 days to demonstrate that her species deserved a place among the stars rather than eternal protection from them. The universe had just revealed itself to be far more dangerous and far more magnificent than anyone had ever imagined. Whether humanity would rise to meet that challenge or retreat to the safety of eternal childhood remained to be seen. In 18 hours, the real test would begin. The first test arrived without warning. Commander Zara Chun was reviewing xenobiology reports when every screen aboard the Resilience suddenly displayed the same image, a detailed star map showing 2 solar systems, each containing billions of lives. The Guardian's voice filled every corner of the ship simultaneously. Your first trial begins now. Before you lies a choice that will reveal the true nature of your species' moral development. On the main bridge, Captain Rodriguez studied the holographic display that had materialized above the central console. The 2 solar systems rotated slowly, showing populated worlds, space stations, and the unmistakable signs of advanced civilization. The Kethvar and the Zephyrians have been locked in conflict for 4,000 of your years, the Guardian continued. Both species possess technologies that could eliminate the other completely, but neither has chosen total war. They understand that mutual destruction serves no purpose. Dr. Elena Vasquez analyzed the data streams flowing across her console. Captain, the energy readings from both systems are incredible. Each civilization appears to control resources equivalent to humanity's entire solar system. However, the Guardian's voice carried a note that might have been sadness. Their conflict has reached a critical point. A young species, recently uplifted and eager to prove themselves worthy of galactic citizenship, has offered to mediate their dispute. A third system appeared in the hologram, smaller and clearly less advanced than the other 2. But surrounding this younger civilization's worlds were massive defensive installations and a fleet of warships that, while primitive compared to the Kethvar and Zephyrians, was still centuries ahead of anything humanity could field. The Novak Confederation believes that ending this ancient war will prove their worthiness to join the galactic community. They have positioned themselves between the 2 powers and demanded that both sides submit to arbitration. Neither the Kethvar nor the Zephyrians wish to harm this young species. But the Novak's interference threatens to trigger the very catastrophe both elder races have worked for millennia to avoid. Lieutenant Martinez looked up from her communication station, her face pale. Sir, we're receiving real-time transmissions from all 3 civilizations. They're asking for our input. Captain Rodriguez felt his mouth go dry. Our input on what? The Novaks want us to support their mediation efforts. They believe that, as fellow young species, we should stand together. The Kethvar are warning us that the Novaks' inexperience will lead to disaster for all three civilizations. The Zephyrians are offering to share advanced technology if we help them convince the Novaks to withdraw. Commander Chin studied the tactical displays showing the positioning of millions of vessels across 3 star systems. This isn't just a test of our judgment. It's a test of whether we can see beyond immediate self-interest. Precisely, Commander Chin, the Guardian acknowledged. The Novak Confederation faces a choice similar to one your own species will encounter repeatedly as you develop. Do you prioritize the appearance of strength and moral authority, or do you choose the harder path of recognizing your limitations? Dr. Vasquez highlighted energy readings on her screen. Captain, the weapon signatures I'm detecting could sterilize entire solar systems. If this conflict escalates, we're not talking about millions of casualties. We're talking about the extinction of entire civilizations. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Supporting the Novaks might demonstrate solidarity with fellow young species, but it could trigger a war that would destroy billions of lives. Siding with either the Kethvar or Zephyrians might prevent immediate disaster, but could establish humanity as a species willing to abandon their peers for personal gain. How long do we have to decide? Rodriguez asked. The Novaks have given both elder civilizations 6 of your hours to submit to arbitration. After that, they threatened to take direct action to force compliance. The Kethvar and Zephyrians have both stated they will defend themselves if attacked, even if it means destroying the Novaks. Zara realized the true nature of the test. This isn't really about the 3 civilizations in conflict. It's about whether we can recognize that sometimes the most responsible action is to admit you're not ready to take responsibility. Explain your reasoning, Commander, the Guardian prompted. The Novaks are making the same mistake humanity might make in similar circumstances. They're confusing good intentions with wisdom, and the desire to matter with the actual ability to make a positive difference. They're inserting themselves into a situation they don't understand, with consequences they can't control. Lieutenant Martinez received another transmission. Sir, the Novaks are directly requesting our military assistance. They want us to join their fleet as a show of multi-species support for their mediation efforts. Captain Rodriguez closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command more heavily than ever before. Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, do the Novaks have any chance of successfully mediating this dispute? The xenobiologist reviewed the cultural and historical data streaming to her console. None whatsoever. The conflict between the Kethvar and Zephyrians involves religious differences, territorial disputes, and philosophical incompatibilities that have developed over 4,000 years. The Novaks have been spacefaring for less than 200 years. They're like children trying to solve a divorce between their parents. But their intentions are good, Zara added. They genuinely want to help, to prove themselves worthy of respect in the galactic community. That desire is admirable, but it's going to get everyone killed. Another transmission arrived, this time from the Kethvar. The alien voice was melodious, but carried undertones of genuine concern. Young humans, we do not wish to see another promising species destroyed by premature ambition. The Novaks cannot understand what they are attempting to mediate. Our conflict with the Zephyrians involves fundamental differences in how reality itself should be structured. There can be no compromise because compromise would destroy the universe both our species inhabit. Almost immediately, a Zephyrian transmission followed. Their communication was more direct, almost mechanical. Human vessel, the young Novaks seek to impose their linear thinking on a nonlinear problem. Their intervention will force us to choose between allowing them to damage the cosmic foundations of our existence or defending reality itself. We do not wish to harm them, but we will not permit universal dissolution. Commander Chin translated the implications. Captain, we're not just dealing with a political dispute. Based on these transmissions, the Kethvar and Zephyrians have developed fundamentally different approaches to manipulating space-time itself. The Novaks are trying to mediate between two different versions of physics. The young Novaks believe that all disputes can be resolved through negotiation and compromise, the Guardian explained. This belief, while admirable, fails to account for conflicts involving incompatible realities. Some differences cannot be bridged without destroying one or both sides. Rodriguez realized the full scope of the decision before them. We're being asked to choose between supporting fellow young species in their desire to be taken seriously or acknowledging that sometimes being taken seriously means accepting that you're not ready for certain responsibilities. A new transmission arrived from the Novak Confederation. The speaker was clearly young, enthusiastic, and absolutely convinced of their righteous cause. Fellow young civilization, together we can show the elder races that new thinking can solve old problems. Join us in proving that the next generation deserves a voice in galactic affairs. Dr. Vasquez shook her head sadly. They have no idea what they're really asking for. They think this is about respect and representation. They don't understand that some problems can't be solved by enthusiasm and good intentions. The question before your species, the Guardian continued, is whether you will choose the path of wisdom or the path of pride. Will you support the Novaks in their doomed mission out of species solidarity, or will you demonstrate the maturity to recognize when intervention causes more harm than good? Lieutenant Martinez reported another development. Captain, the Novak fleet is beginning to move into position between the Kethvar and Zephyrian systems. Both elder civilizations are powering up defensive systems. We have maybe 3 hours before this situation becomes irreversible. Zara looked at the holographic display showing 3 civilizations poised on the brink of a catastrophe that could rewrite the laws of physics in their local region of space. Captain, I recommend we contact the Novaks directly, not to support or oppose them, but to share our own experience. What experience? Rodriguez asked. The experience of being young and wanting to matter. The experience of realizing that sometimes the most adult thing you can do is admit you're still learning. Maybe we can help them see that stepping back isn't failure, it's growth. Dr. Vasquez nodded. If we can convince them to withdraw voluntarily, they save face, no one dies, and they demonstrate the kind of wisdom that might actually earn them respect from the elder civilizations. And if they refuse to listen, Rodriguez asked, then we'll have learned something important about ourselves, Zara replied. We'll know whether we're the kind of species that can accept difficult truths, or whether we're destined to repeat the same mistakes as those who came before us. Captain Rodriguez made his decision. Open a channel to the Novak Confederation. This is going to be the most important conversation in the history of 3 civilizations. As the communication link established, every person on the bridge understood that they were about to discover not just whether humanity could pass this test, but whether they could help another young species avoid a catastrophe that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The stakes had never been higher, and time was running out. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to someone who could have been human. Commander Yaxel of the Novak Confederation was young, determined, and carried the unmistakable burden of trying to prove their entire species worthy of galactic respect. Their eyes held the same mixture of hope and desperation that Commander Zurichin had seen in mirrors during humanity's darkest hours. Captain Rodriguez of the Terran vessel, Yaxel began, we are honored that another young species has come to witness our first major contribution to galactic peace. Your support in this historic moment would demonstrate the solidarity necessary for all emerging civilizations. Captain Rodriguez chose his words carefully. Commander Yaxel, we're honored by your invitation, but before we respond, We'd like to share something with you. May we speak freely?" Yaxel's expression shifted slightly, perhaps sensing that this conversation wouldn't follow the script they had expected. Of course, new species should share wisdom freely. 3 months ago, humanity detected signals from this sector and decided to investigate, Rodriguez began. We thought we were ready to take our place among the stars. We believed our technology, our courage, and our good intentions were enough to handle whatever we might encounter. Commander Chin stepped forward. We were wrong. In the past week, we've learned that the galaxy is far more complex and dangerous than we ever imagined. We've discovered that good intentions, even backed by advanced technology, can lead to catastrophes that destroy entire civilizations. Yaxel's confidence flickered. Are you suggesting we abandon our mission? The Kethvar and Zephyrians have been fighting for 4,000 years. Surely fresh perspective and neutral mediation can find solutions that centuries of hatred have obscured. Dr. Vasquez activated her console, sharing the data they had gathered about the conflict. Commander, we've been analyzing the communications from both elder civilizations. This isn't a typical territorial or resource dispute. The Kethvar and Zephyrians have developed incompatible approaches to manipulating fundamental forces of reality itself. Incompatible how? Yaxel asked, their certainty beginning to waver. Imagine if one species discovered that reality works like mathematics, while another discovered that reality works like music, Zara explained. Both discoveries would be true within their own framework, but trying to reconcile them wouldn't create harmony. It would create chaos that destroys the foundation both truths depend on. The Novak commander studied the data streaming across their screen. For the first time, doubt crept into their voice. But surely there must be some middle ground, some compromise that preserves both approaches? Lieutenant Martinez provided a real-time update. Commander Yaxel, both elder civilizations are now broadcasting the same message. They're begging you to withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of genuine fear for your safety and the safety of everyone in this sector. Rodriguez leaned forward. Commander, what we're about to say might sound like cowardice, but it's actually the hardest lesson we've had to learn. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is admit you're not ready for a particular responsibility. You're asking us to abandon our principles, Yaxel protested, to turn our backs on suffering because it's difficult to address. No, Chin replied firmly. We're asking you to consider whether your intervention will actually reduce suffering or increase it exponentially. Dr. Vasquez highlighted energy readings that made even the advanced Novak technology look primitive. The weapons systems both elder civilizations are now activating could sterilize entire star systems. If they're forced to fight each other through you, the collateral damage won't just destroy your fleet. It could destabilize space-time across dozens of light years. Yaxel's resolve was clearly shaking, but pride and expectations of their entire civilization held them in place. Our people have spent decades preparing for this moment. How do we return home and explain that we were too afraid to try? You don't explain that you were too afraid, Rodriguez said. You explain that you were wise enough to recognize the difference between problems you can solve and problems that require different tools than you currently possess. The Guardian's voice suddenly filled both ships simultaneously. Commander Yaxel, you have 30 minutes before the Kethvar and Zephyrian defensive systems reach a point where withdrawal will no longer prevent catastrophic interaction. On the tactical display, massive energy patterns were building across both elder civilizations' territories. Space itself was beginning to warp as incompatible technologies prepared for potential conflict. Commander, Chin addressed Yaxel directly, what if instead of mediating this ancient conflict, you pioneered a new approach to galactic citizenship? What if the Novak Confederation became the first young species to voluntarily step back from a situation beyond their current capabilities, not out of cowardice, but out of wisdom. You could establish a new precedent, Dr. Vasquez added. Instead of young species having to prove themselves through grand gestures that often end in disaster, you could prove that true maturity means knowing your limitations and growing beyond them gradually. Yaxel was silent for long moments, clearly wrestling with the weight of decision. Finally, they spoke. If we withdraw, how do we face our people? How do we explain that our first major action on the galactic stage was to admit defeat before we even tried? You don't frame it as defeat, Rodriguez suggested. You frame it as the beginning of a longer, more sustainable path to earning genuine respect from elder civilizations. The Kethvar and Zephyrians haven't asked you to withdraw because they think you're inferior, Chin explained. They've asked because they recognize something in you worth preserving. They see potential that would be destroyed if you proceed. Another transmission arrived, this time from both elder civilizations simultaneously. The Kethvar spoke in their melodious tones, while the Zephyrians provided harmonic, mathematical accompaniment. Young Novaks and young humans, we offer you both a gift that we were never offered in our youth. We offer you the wisdom to step back from a precipice that has claimed dozens of promising young species over the millennia. The prime rule exists not to limit your growth, but to ensure that growth continues rather than ending in premature extinction. Yaxel closed their eyes, and when they opened them, something fundamental had changed. The desperate need to prove themselves had been replaced by something deeper and more sustainable. Commander Rodriguez, if we withdraw our fleet, will you witness our statement to the galactic community? Will you help us explain that the Novak Confederation chooses the path of gradual wisdom over immediate glory? It would be our honor, Rodriguez replied. 30 minutes later, the space between the Kethvar and Zephyrian systems was clear. The Novak fleet had withdrawn to a safe distance, where Commander Yaxel broadcast a message that would be studied by young civilizations across the galaxy for generations to come. This is Commander Yaxel of the Novak Confederation. We came here believing that good intentions and determination were sufficient to solve any problem. We have learned that some challenges require not just courage, but patience and wisdom that can only be developed over time. We withdraw not in defeat, but in recognition that the galaxy needs species who know when to act and when to grow. The response from the galactic community was immediate and unprecedented. Dozens of elder civilizations that had never before acknowledged the Novak Confederation sent messages of respect and offers of gradual mentorship. The withdrawal had accomplished what the mediation attempt never could have achieved. The Guardian's voice returned, this time carrying unmistakable approval. Both young species have demonstrated the capacity for growth that marks true readiness for galactic citizenship. The Novaks have shown that strength includes recognizing one's limitations. The humans have shown that wisdom includes helping others avoid unnecessary destruction. Captain Rodriguez felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Does this mean humanity has passed the test? The first test, yes. But your real education is just beginning. The galaxy contains wonders and terrors beyond your current comprehension. You will encounter species that make the Kethvar and Zephyrians seem primitive, conflicts that span multiple dimensions, and choices that affect the fundamental nature of existence itself. Commander Chin stepped forward. We understand. We're ready to learn gradually and carefully. Then, welcome to the galactic community, young humans and young Novaks. Your journey toward true adulthood begins now. The Prime Rule will continue to guide you, not as a restriction, but as protection while you develop the strength and wisdom necessary for the challenges ahead. As the transmission ended, Rodriguez turned to his crew. Every face reflected the same mixture of relief, pride, and humble recognition of how much they still had to learn. Dr. Vasquez was already analyzing data streams from civilizations they had never heard of, each one representing knowledge and experience accumulated over millions of years. Lieutenant Martinez was receiving friendly communications from young species across the galaxy, eager to share their own stories of learning to balance ambition with wisdom. Commander Chin stood at the viewport, watching as space around them filled with vessels from across the galactic community. Ships of designs that challenged human understanding of physics, crewed by beings whose existence expanded the very definition of life itself. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we're about to discover that passing this test wasn't the end of our journey. It was just our acceptance letter to a university we never knew existed." Rodriguez nodded, already planning humanity's first steps into a larger universe. "Then, let's make sure we're worthy students. The galaxy has waited long enough for us to grow up." As the Resilience adjusted course toward its new destiny, every human aboard understood that they were no longer explorers venturing into the unknown. They were students, about to begin the most important education in their species' history. The stars ahead no longer seemed distant and cold. They seemed welcoming, ready to share secrets that would transform humanity from children playing with dangerous toys into genuine citizens of an infinite cosmos. The Prime Rule had protected them from destruction. Now it would guide them toward wisdom worthy of the trust the galaxy had placed in their potential. Their real adventure was just beginning.